Hey guys, EDDBUD here, and today it's out with the old and in with the new with my initial review of the Adidas SL20.2. A strange end of year update. I'm not entirely sure that we need it. Gonna get straight in. I've got loads to talk about with this shoe today. So we see a change in weight in my UK size 11.5 or US size 12. This is a whole ounce heavier than the SL20 in my size, so it's roughly 28 grams heavier. On the Adidas website, they reckon for a UK size 8.5 there's only a 15 gram increase, so obviously the larger the shoe the more weight increase, which is sad. The heel to toe drop is apparently the same, though I'm not entirely sure about the measurements on the Adidas website. I've seen a few other YouTubers reference some of the measurements on there and they never seem to be right. They do seem to suggest that this has a lower midsole stack than the SL20, which just simply isn't the case. There's far more light strike in the midsole here in the 20.2. I mean, just visually and in hand you can see that it's different. So I think take those website stats with a pinch of salt. So I feel off the bat that this shoe is certainly designed as a daily partner to the Adizero Pro. Pure and simple. There are several similarities between the stack height in that shoe and this one. I think that when we look at the shoes like that, it makes more sense to compare the SL20 up with the Adios 5. Just closer stacks, upper materials, and heel to toe drop as well. They're all very similar. But I do think that this one is designed as a partner shoe to the Adizero Pro. So an initial run today of 8 miles or 12.8 kilometers. It was my Steve Martin run today, inspired by the film Mixed Nuts. I urge you to go and check that one out if you haven't seen it before. So a mix of paces here, some easy recovery stuff, a little fartlek, and a couple of threshold miles thrown in for good measure. So giving a good varied test to this high-vis beast. Beast is alive and kicking. A few people have been asking where Beast is, but she's absolutely fine and here to cause trouble as usual. What have you been eating? There's no need to speak to me like that. Never work with animals. Upper first. So the closest thing to the upper material that I can think of, that I have experience with, is probably the Zoom Fly 3 from Nike. It's almost mesh-like and very similar to the Vaporweave that's featured on the Zoom Fly 3. It's sort of got one layer and then a mesh layer underneath, and I have to say it collects dirt and debris like for a pastime. I've had to clean the shoe up just to do the review. It looked terrible earlier on. One thing to note, that any moisture that gets on the shoe, it soaks straight in. You're going to end up with some very, very wet socks. I found the fit of the upper a little strange in fairness, but it worked out okay once I got the hang of it. Cinching the laces towards the toe box here just makes the tongue bunch up together. You can see by some of the images on the screen now that it's stitched in up to the second eyelets there. So if you try and cinch or pull those eyelets together, it just makes the tongue really odd and it starts to bulge upwards and it just sits on your foot in a really odd way. The toe box is a little larger than the original SL20 and a touch wider too. The stripe on the front of the shoe really does remind me of the Pegasus 35 Turbo. Maybe that has something to do with the perceived height increase. Quite a thin tongue here. It does remind me of that on the Zoom Fly from Nike. It's that sort of level of thin. You could say wafer thin. I think where they've minimised weight in the upper of the shoe, they've kind of misused it a little bit in other parts of the shoe. That mesh is extremely breathable. On a cold run today, I could feel the wind whistling through my toes. I think that could be awesome if you live in a very hot, humid climate, but a real Grinch in the crispy, cold weather here in the UK. Lockdown to me, I've got to be honest, doesn't feel as assured as in the SL20, and it's nowhere near as good as the upper that's on the Adizero Pro or the Adizero Adios Pro. I mean, it looks kind of the same, but it's not. Those flywire things here just feel a little bit tacked on. It almost looks like the shoe was designed not to have them. And that simple design of the SL20 was just still in my mind from yesterday. The laces are very short. If you want to use a runner's knot, you're going to have a few problems. It's going to be tough to get that double knot at the end. Did they even try out the lace length to see if that was a possible thing? It just seems really odd that Adidas have let that slip. No slipping though in the heel counter, but I'm not sure about this upper. After my initial run, I think I'm going to give it a 1.8 out of 3. It's just loads of stuff there that doesn't work for me at all. Hints of the Pegasus 37 and the Zoom Fly 3. Midsole is here now to save the day, maybe. You can see areas of the midsole here that look like they were supposed to be relieved or hollowed out. If you look on the SL20 here, you can see that's where those sections have been hollowed away and just simply hasn't been done on the SL20.2. Why? I'm perplexed as to why they haven't done that. It really isn't required there in the midfoot section. Around the arch, you just don't need it there. That means more weight in the midsole, and it's just nowhere near as versatile for me as its predecessor. I mean, it did start to feel good when I pushed up towards sub 7-minute miles into my threshold zone. It shined a little more there, but this is a very different feeling shoe to the SL20. I think mainly due to that changed midsole stack. There's just a lot more midsole here, and you can feel it. I think that moves this shoe more into a longer run category for me. A lot of people said that they didn't like the SL20, it just didn't have enough cushion for them on longer runs. Well, here's your answer. For me, it's just less of a fun and quirky option. Just doesn't feel anywhere as nimble. More a focused training shoe on a very specific goal. Just steady speed, perhaps over longer miles. I just think there's other shoes out there with more cushion that are vastly more comfortable. I mean, Turbo 2, for example, or even the Dynablast, actually. I think I prefer that over this one. Just lots of other shoes with less weight that are more versatile. I just think the midsole lacked a little bit of the response I found in the SL20. I liked being lower to the ground in that shoe. I just lost that ground feel completely in this one. And I really felt at those higher speeds like I missed the torsion plate as well. Just had a little bit of extra rigidity there, and this just feels like a slab. I think though if you added the torsion plate in there, it'd just be a pointless addition. You wouldn't be able to feel it. Quite an underwhelming midsole experience here. I think it's hard to even compare it to the SL20. They just feel very different. I think after my initial run, I'm going to give this a 2 out of 3 for midsole. I think it could work quite well for long runs. I will test it out with a long run on Sunday of this week. Outsole now. It's hard to mess up an outsole, especially an Adidas shoe. And it certainly is the better part of this shoe. 2 sections of almost trail-like lugs here. I do remember one of the viewers on Strava mentioned it probably could work out on trails. I think he's right. And you have a much thicker application of continental rubber in the forefoot and in the heel. They certainly haven't scrimped there, but I think you really need to be hungry for durability to even think about wearing that down. Grip is triumphant as per usual in an Adidas shoe. It worked well on gravel, grass, concrete, and even on tarmac. My question again is why the big increase in the rubber? The thickness is it's just not needed. Just seems like overkill and added weight. It just pulls this shoe further away for me for what the SL20's sequel should have been. You're going to get loads of miles out of it though. I can't see it wearing down anytime soon. I'll give it a 2.5 out of 3 after my initial run for Outsole. Value. We can't forget this is a 100 Earth credit shoe. In fact, I grabbed it in a deal for 65 Earth credits, so even better. But still, I feel that the magic is gone. It just isn't the shoe that we're looking for right now. Feels less of a versatile offering. That's going to put a few people off from giving it a whirl. I think the new upper as well will no doubt appeal to some people and not others. I mean, I don't have a particularly narrow foot, but I had loads of bunching here in the upper. It's just not right. Certainly the upper lockdown for me was a real backward step, as is the midsole actually as well. Those who yearned for more cushion from their SL20 will really enjoy the SL20.2, but just feels to me that it's not really bringing anything new to the table. That said, I would still take this shoe over the Pegasus 37, definitely. I think it still resembles some reasonable value at its retail price, just perhaps less of a versatile offering this time round. I'll go 2.2 out of 3 for value. So if I've totaled up the scores correctly, that gives us an 8.6 out of 12 after my initial run for the Adidas SL20.2. So a little bit of a letdown after the initial run, but I'm not going to let that deter me. You know I like having my mind changed, my opinion redirected. I'll take it out on the long run on Sunday, 15 miles, see how it fares. Have you cats run in the SL20.2 yet? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. A quick musical interlude for you. When it comes to rock and roll in Great Britain, you know, there are some real kings out there. I mean, you got Sir Cliff Richard, Daryl Hyam. I mean, what a player, what a singer, great dude. He plays that Gretsch, man. God, if I could play with like 1% of his skill, I'd be happy. But you often forget the Welsh rocker, Shakin' Stevens. Matt Guy had some really good moves, you know, back in the 80s. But I really love his Christmas tune. That's the one that really, really gets me. I love the poppy production. It's so 80s sounding. Precise though. Merry Christmas everyone is certainly one of my favourites around this time. I think I listened to it 4 times in a row the other day. Just such a good feeling tune. It's just impossible not to enjoy Merry Christmas everyone. Even if you've been stuck behind a till and heard it 78 times in one day. I haven't experienced that, but you know, I might recreate it and see if I can handle it. Shaky's got loads of good rock and roll tunes over the years. Hot Dog, that's a good one. Marie Marie used to be my favourite. Used to play that with my dad's group with an exceptionally talented guitarist, Justin Wharton. Justin, if you're watching, I miss you, buddy. Our guitars used to intertwine. Some of the most wonderful musical moments that I've ever experienced. You could just lose yourself. That man was a skilled player as well. I still hope he's playing. It'd be fantastic to play with him once again. Anyway, check out Merry Christmas Everyone by Shakin' Stevens. It might be that you've never heard this if you're in other parts of the world, but yeah. Rely on good old Great Britain to produce some strange stuff. Okay. We draw to the end of this mammoth review. There's a lot to get through today on this one. But when you get a new shoe, you got to make sure you leave no stone unturned. Thanks for watching through to the very end of the video today, guys. I very much appreciate it. If you haven't checked out the EDDBUD merchandise, please do. You should appear somewhere down here. There's also a link in the description if you can't find it. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell for notifications with when I launch those new shoe related videos. It really helps the channel out too if you give this video a thumbs up. And share it with your running buddies. My name's EDDBUD and I'll be seeing you.